It's in their final hours that history's most feared men finally meet the truth they spent a lifetime running from. The cameras don't always capture it, but witnesses remember the trembling hands, the desperate eyes, the silence after years of thunderous speeches. In those last moments, every illusion fades. From Adolf Hitler's bunker in Berlin to Mussolini's roadside execution, from Ceausescu's frozen courtyard to Saddam's gallows and Gaddafi's desert ditch. Their empires collapsed not with glory, but with fear. This is what happened inside their final hours, when the world they built turned against them. Berlin, April 1945. The Third Reich is dying. Allied bombers tear the sky apart as Soviet tanks roll closer to the city center. Underground, deep beneath the ruins of the Chancellery, Adolf Hitler hides in a concrete tomb, the Führer bunker. The walls tremble with each explosion. The air is heavy with smoke and sweat. Around him, his closest aides whisper, their faces hollow with exhaustion. Hitler sits hunched at a table littered with empty teacups and trembling maps. His hands shake uncontrollably. His hair has turned gray. For the man who once commanded millions, reality has become unbearable. Reports arrive by the hour. German divisions destroyed, cities captured, generals defect. His grand dream of a 1,000-year Reich has barely survived 12, but Hitler refuses to accept defeat. He storms through the hallways, screaming orders that no one dares to follow. His eyes are wild, sunken, filled with a manic fire that no longer inspires loyalty, only pity. Above ground, the once proud city of Berlin has become a graveyard of his ambition. Civilians starve, soldiers surrender, and children are handed rifles in a hopeless attempt to defend the ruins. Yet in the bunker, Hitler still imagines victory. They will break, he insists, pointing to phantom armies on the map. His generals exchange glances. They know it's over. On April 29th, Hitler marries Eva Braun, the woman who had followed him faithfully into madness. The next morning, the sound of Soviet artillery shakes the bunker one last time. Hitler retreats to his private quarters. Moments later, a single gunshot echoes through the narrow halls. His guards find him slumped on the sofa. A pistol in his hand, Eva lies beside him. Outside, the Red Army advances. The man who brought Europe to its knees leaves behind only ashes, silence, and ruin. 6 years earlier, another fascist dreamer had met his end. Northern Italy, April 28, 1945. Benito Mussolini, the father of fascism, once hailed as Il Duce, the strong man who promised eternal glory, now hides like a fugitive. His black uniform is gone, replaced by a German overcoat and helmet. He's trying to flee north with a small convoy of retreating soldiers, his mistress, Clara Petacci, by his side. The Alps are his last hope, but Italy has turned against him. The people who once filled the streets with chants of loyalty now curse his name. When partisans stop the convoy, Mussolini tries to disguise himself, but his arrogance betrays. "Do you know who I am?" he mutters. They know. They drag him out of the truck. There is no trial, no audience, no last speech, just a burst of gunfire on a cold roadside near Lake Como. The next morning, Milan awakens to the sight of Mussolini's corpse hanging upside down in Piazzale Loreto, beside Clara's. A furious crowd gathers. They shout, throw stones, spit, and strike the bodies with shoes. Mothers lift their children to see the monsters who once ruled their lives. It's more than vengeance. It's release. For 20 years, Mussolini had promised destiny, but in his final moment, there was only gravity and silence. His dead eyes stare down at the crowd that no longer fears. The echo of his speeches fades beneath the cheers of liberation. Half a century later, on another continent, a new dictator faces the same fate. Baghdad, December 13th, 2003. American soldiers surround a small farmhouse near Tikrit. They find a hole in the ground covered by dirt and plywood. Inside, crouched in the dark, is Saddam Hussein, the man who once ruled Iraq through terror and spectacle, who built palaces of marble and prisons of steel, is now filthy, unshaven, trembling. His hair is matted, his beard streaked with gray. The soldiers shout for him to surrender. He lifts his hands slowly, muttering, "I am Saddam Hussein, the president of Iraq." But power has already abandoned him. For decades, Saddam ruled with an iron fist. He filled mass graves, gassed villages, and executed rivals without hesitation. His portraits lined every street, his voice filled every radio, his paranoia poisoned every home. Yet in his final hours, he was just a man hiding in a hole. pulled from the earth like the ghosts of those he buried. When they take him to prison, he refuses to show fear. "You can't break me," he says, but time has already. After a long trial, his crimes are read out loud for the world to hear. Torture, genocide, war. He stands in a dark room on December 30th, 2006, surrounded by guards. A rope hangs before him. He smiles faintly, muttering prayers under his breath. "Down with the traitors," he whispers. The trapdoor opens. Silence. The dictator who once built monuments to his immortality falls into history's abyss. And in Eastern Europe, 2 decades before Saddam's fall, another dictator faced the fury of his people. December 25th, 1989, Romania. Snow covers the ground like a shroud. Nicolae Ceausescu, the man who ruled for 24 years, once worshipped like a god, is now a prisoner. Just days earlier, he stood on the balcony of the Central Committee building, addressing thousands, believing they still adored him. But the cheers had turned to shouts and then chaos. The revolution had erupted. His armies deserted him. His secret police fled. He and his wife, Elena, tried to escape by helicopter, but even the pilot turned against them. Captured in a small town, they are brought before a military tribunal hastily convened in a barracks room. The charges are read aloud. Genocide, corruption, abuse of power. Ceausescu laughs. "I am still the president of Romania," he insists. Elena insults the judges, calling them traitors. But the soldiers do not move. They have seen the hunger, the fear, the bodies. They have lived under his silence. The verdict, guilty. Sentence, death by firing squad, effective immediately. The guards led them outside into the snow. Ceausescu's voice trembles as he begins to sing the Internationale, the anthem of the working class. Gunfire cuts him short. The echo bounces off the walls and fades into the winter air. Hours later, state television broadcasts the footage. The people who once bowed their heads in obedience now watch their dictator fall. For the first time in decades, the streets are filled not with fear, but with hope. And then in 2011, one more tyrant met his end under the scorching desert sun, Sirte, Libya. The air is thick with dust and gunfire. Muammar Gaddafi's convoy races down a coastal road, trying to escape for 42 years. He has ruled Libya as the brother leader, the self-proclaimed king of kings. He built palaces of marble and tents of gold, promising a utopia of equality while crushing dissent with torture and bloodshed. But his empire has crumbled. Rebels have surrounded the city. NATO jets circle above. When a missile strikes near his car, Gaddafi crawls from the wreckage, dazed and bleeding, clutching his golden pistol. He hides in a drainage pipe under the road. Moments later, rebels find him. They pull him out, shouting, hitting, filming. His uniform is torn, his face smeared with blood and sand. "Don't shoot," he pleads, his voice trembling. But rage fills the air. For decades, he had ruled by humiliation. Now humiliation is all that's left. They shove him into a pickup truck, the crowd pressing around, chanting, weeping, laughing. He looks up at them in disbelief, unable to comprehend that people he called my children are the ones who brought him down. On the way to Misrata, chaos erupts in the truck. When the dust settles, Gaddafi is dead. His body is displayed for the world to see, the final image of a man who once believed himself immortal. 5 men, 5 empires of fear, 5 endings that echo the same truth, that power built on terror always ends in terror. In their palaces, they believed they were untouchable. They controlled armies, wealth, and propaganda. But in their last hours, they faced what every tyrant fears most, silence. The silence of loyalty turned to betrayal, of applause turned to accusation. In the end, their deaths were not heroic or noble. They were inevitable. Hitler's 1,000-year dream burned to dust in Berlin. Mussolini's fascist empire hung from a steel beam in Milan. Ceausescu's socialist utopia bled out in a snowy courtyard. Saddam's Republic of Fear ended with a rope. Gaddafi's golden age collapsed into a desert grave. They built their legacies on control, but none could control the final act. History caught up to them all. Even now, their last moments linger, not as warnings from the past, but as proof that fear has an expiration date. No matter how absolute the power, no matter how long the rule, the people always remember. And when that memory turns to anger, the end comes swiftly. The tyrants of history fall not because they are weak, but because they forget that the strength of one man can never outweigh the will of millions. In the final light of their lives, surrounded by enemies and echoes, each one of them saw it, the truth that no propaganda can erase, no army can defend against, no fortress can hide from power ends. Fear fades, and history never forgets. If this story kept you watching till the end, make sure to subscribe for more true stories that change the world forever.